Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing a reading vlog. I'm going to be attempting to finish some of the series I'm in the middle of. So I'm going to be reading the next book in the Lakefront Billionaires series by Lauren Asher, Love Arranged. That's the third and final book in the series. Also the second book in the Villains of Lore series, I believe, by Jasmine, Bonds of Hercules. And finally, the next book in the Priory Orange Tree series, A Day of Fallen Night. So please follow along. I had so much fun. Also, I was in a pretty weird reading slump throughout the entire period of time when I was filming this video. So for the last book, I was struggling a little bit, but you're gonna hear from me when I get to that part. But I hope you enjoy, and let's get straight into the video. This is the first book that I decided to read for this vlog, and this is Love Arranged, and this is the final book, hopefully, in the Lakefront Millionaire series. I read the other two books a while ago, but I feel like after reading Alchemized, I needed something light because I've been trying to read Babel for the last couple of days, but it just did not hit. It's not bad. I'm not saying that it's a very bad book or anything. It's just that I feel like it's a lot of information and I don't think I need that right now. So I need something that's light and fun, and so far I've been very enjoying this. I finished reading the prologue, I want to say, the little blurb at the beginning before getting into chapter 1, and also finishing chapter 1. But I'm here to give you a bit of an update because so far I'm actually very intrigued, just because of how unique this is in terms of setup, the background story, the context of these two people. They met through a dating app. And the dating app is inspired by Greek mythology, so Eros, I think. It's very similar to Cupid, but it's a different, I'm not sure. But basically, they met through the dating app. They've been texting for a couple of weeks or months since August, when she invited him to a Halloween party in town and he showed up. She kissed him and he didn't kiss back, and they broke off after that, and she's been texting him ever since until November. But then he decided to ghost her and did not answer and everything. So they did have a little bit of a backstory to them, which I really enjoy, and which I found to be very interesting because they already are somewhat attractive to each other and they at least knows some things about each other, like their favorite movies. And I feel from reading their messages through this dating app, I could tell that they really, really resonate with one another and they click as friends, but also as people who are romantically interested in each other. So that's very interesting. But now it's a very awkward, but you can tell that the tension's there. So that's what chapter 1 set up for us. But so far it's very intriguing, and already I know that both of these people, they have some sort of backstory and dark and shadowy version and aspect of their life. So I'm very interested to see how Lauren Asher would dig deeper and try to take advantage of those two shadowy parts of Liliana and also Lorenzo. So yeah, I'll continue reading and I'll catch up with you whenever I have an update, or else when I get to the halfway mark. It's been a couple of days and I finally got to the halfway mark of Love Arranged by Lauren Asher. I have some thoughts. So far, these two people, Lorenzo and Lily, I feel like their love story is a bit slower than the other two books that I read, just because it took them up until the 50% mark, or at least 40% mark, to actually come to an agreement, becoming a fake fiancé type situation. And all of that, it's already printed on the back of the book. So I feel like I haven't read anything that's different from what I already know. Something that I did not expect to learn about is Lorenzo's OCD. I appreciate the effort being put into researching and trying to characterizing a person with OCD, and so far it's been unique in terms of that. But overall, as a love story, I haven't read anything that's new. Whereas while reading the other two books, I felt like at least there was something new to the entire arrangement. For this thing, I didn't need to read all of that just to know about their like fake fiance program, because I could have read the blurb at the back of the book. I was a bit disappointed in terms of that because I didn't see a lot of like characterization to begin with even. So that's why I'm not sure. I'm gonna still keep reading, but so far I'm kind of like disappointed. This fake fiance thing, it is a very hard thing to do right, in my personal opinion. From the first 2 books, we know that Lorenzo had like a conflict and an argument with Julian, Dahlia's boyfriend slash fiance slash husband. But up until this book, like in this book, we learned that the grudge between them stems from something that's like very childish, and I did not appreciate that at all. Because if it's something that's so, I don't want to say small, but something that's like so many years ago, it happened so many years ago, I haven't had a reason to see the validity in bringing that back up. And I know that kind of adds like, I don't know, climax and some sort of conflict to the story between Lorenzo and Lily, but make it make sense, in my personal opinion. If it's like something that's happened in their childhood and they're like, what, 30-year-old now? I don't know how I feel about that. It just makes them seem very immature, in my personal opinion. Julian also becomes super childish and immature compared to when I first read about him in book 1. He seemed very mature. He had a lot going on with his dad. His background has passed, but he still was able to work around that. You know, there was a lot of depiction in terms of that. There's a background, context, and I truly appreciated his depth and complexity, his vulnerability, and the ability to overcome that. That entire depiction of him collapsed because of their grudge in book 3. That's all that I have on my noggin as of now. I'm gonna keep reading. I don't think many things are gonna happen in the later half of the book, so I'm gonna catch you hopefully at the end of the book, or if I have an update or something else I want to say before that, we're gonna meet and talk. It's the next day and I finished Level Range by Lauren Asher. I think I'm gonna be giving this a 3.5 stars. I thought it was cute. Like I mentioned, the first half of the story was a bit disappointing, but then the later half definitely picked up and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. The character development was very satisfying. I liked the depiction of OCD and the compulsive behaviors that the male protagonist was struggling with. I thought it was very realistic, and him going to therapy added another layer of depth and showing me that, you know, this could be a real person and not just some symptoms on the page. I also thought that the way Lily stood up for herself and the way that she was grounded in her boundaries and her rules and her mindsets and her values when it comes to dating and intentional dating, to be specific, was very, very refreshing, and I truly appreciated how she was so strong and firm in her belief. Like, Lorenzo did not show up and was not contributing as much as she was and was willing to fight for the relationship. She would walk away, no questions asked, and she wouldn't even give him a chance to explain himself, to like prove whatsoever. So I thought that was very refreshing, and that was very, very strong of hers, and I truly admire that. I think this wrapped up the series pretty nicely because I liked how at the end the entire family comes together. The found family aspect, it was represented more in this book compared to the other 2 books. Although I would have loved to have heard more from Elle. Is her name Elle or Ellie? The female protagonist from book 2, and also Nico, the son that I was talking about, because I remember when I was reading book 2, I was truly intrigued by his story and his condition, and so I was hoping that maybe, you know, we would hear from them. Lake Wisteria, I feel like it's gonna be one of those series that I would return for comfort and for some vibes. You cannot read these books if you think too hard about all the decisions that these people make, right? You have to read this knowing that you're in for the vibes, and these are books that, though these are like palate cleansers, these are books that you can read in between big series, in between big hard books, and I truly appreciate how whimsical, how fantastical, just how lighthearted this book and the entire series is. So I feel like I would recommend Lakefront and Billionaires, although obviously it's not realistic. You know, it's good. Sometimes we just need a little bit of a delusion. You know, sometimes we need to be delusional and just like act like we're billionaires out here. For the next book, I think I'm gonna be reading Bonds of Hercules, but I'm not gonna be starting Bonds of Hercules now because I'm in the middle of Babel by R.F. Kuang. So I think I'm gonna start that after I finish R.F. Kuang. But I'm gonna check back with you when I start reading Bonds of Hercules, and I'm gonna give you some of my initial first impressions. Okay, I have an update for you. In terms of reading Bonds of Hercules, I started this last night and I got to page 100, 104, so I'm like 20% into Bonds of Hercules. And I do have to admit that the first couple of chapters took me by surprise because I didn't expect for them to be happening right after the events of book 1. So that made it a little bit easier for me to understand and remember what was going on in book 1. Although some details I forgot, but I thought the author did a pretty good job at kind of explaining things once again as they go, like who is who, whose nickname is Dad. And I just did a bit of a research on TikTok and I found out that the story of Alexis and these 4 men concluded in book 2, hopefully. So apparently it's gonna be a duet, but then the series as a whole will continue, but after book 2 it's gonna be about the side characters. I'm also excited to just read about how this 4 people or 5 people situation will turn out. I'm not really sure. So far, I feel like it's a good thing that the author spends a little bit more time on each of the male protagonists and giving them their own POV so that we could learn more about their background, their tortures, their shadow, their dark aspects, which I thought was very interesting. And I'm also excited to see, because there have been many hints about her power and her power not manifesting, because her power are supposed to be very, very powerful, with many instances where Persephone, her mother, and Hades, her father, just keep telling her that you're strong, your powers are very, very strong, very powerful, and there's this very feral tendency to her power. So I'm very excited to see what she is capable of. And this book is freaking hilarious, to be honest, and even more hilarious than book 2. So that means that I'm having a lot more fun reading this book than book 2. The sense of humor in this book is just top tier. It's so funny, and it cracked me up from time to time, and it loosened that tense war atmosphere, war academy atmosphere, up a lot. So just makes everything a little bit more enjoyable. So I'm gonna be continuing to read maybe until the 50% mark, and then I'm gonna check back with you. If not, then a little bit further, and then we can talk. I finished Bonds of Hercules last night and I thought this was a good book. I gave it a 3.25 stars, so it was good. I thought the trials aspect of it was appropriately done. It was complex but still manageable, so it's not as confusing as the trials in the Things Gods Break, the second book by Abigail Owen, because that book was just a lot of jumping around. So this book, I felt like even though I read the first book a while back, a couple months back, I still was able to follow the events that was happening in book 2. Although I want to say that Alexis is not an impressive female protagonist. I liked her, don't get me wrong, but she's okay. She's not doing something that's extravagant, over the top, that made me go okay, wow, that woman is special. She's strong, she's powerful, she's kind, she's loving, she's caring. All of those traits that I usually see in books like this already. So I was not too surprised. So Alexis to me is not a very unique female protagonist, but the pacing I thought was good. The plot was unexpected, although the explanation of the plot was not very good. The plot itself was very unique, but the revelation and how they came to know the plot and how the plot was revealed to us, I thought that was a little bit abrupt, and I was okay. I didn't like how that was done, but the love ending the way the story wrapped up. I really enjoyed that, and I thought it's very neat and convenient for the main story to be wrapped up in book 2. So I really like that. I really like how it doesn't drag out. Like, it finished in book 2, but the series as a whole continue, because I think the third book follows the side characters, and I have an idea of who we're following. Let me know if you read Bonds of Hercules down in the comment section what you thought of it. I went into this book with a bit of a higher expectation because everybody on TikTok and BookTok was like raving about how brilliant this book is. I thought it was okay. It was definitely better than the first book for obvious reasons. I had such a good time reading this book. So it's like a purely, I think it's more of a vibes book than the book where you would like dissect and kind of examine and fixate on every single small details. If you're like the type of person that does that, or the type of reader that does that, I don't think you're gonna have a good time, because I feel like you just have to go with the vibe for this book. But it was so funny. Like, it cracked me up, and I was having a good old time. The spice level was not too high, so I appreciated how this book was more focused on building the plot and trying to wrap up the story in a very nice way, instead of just, smut and them having sex. So I really enjoyed that. Okay, that's Bonds of Hercules. And the last book I will be reading for this blog is the second book in the Probably the Orange Tree series. I checked it out from the library already, so I'm gonna go ahead and read a little bit of that. I think I'm gonna do multiple check-ins with that book because it's a huge book, but I'll let you know when I get to reading that book, and then we can talk. Okay, I forgot to film an initial reaction to A Day of Fallen Night. It slipped my mind. I was trying to remind myself, but then when it got past page 300, I was like, oops, I forgot. So I'm back with a halfway update instead. This book is gigantic, and this is harder to read than the first book for sure. It's slower, and I feel like most of the things that happened I already know of, so I'm not so sure what the author is trying to build up to. We are introduced to a completely different cast of character, although the world is the same, different countries, the politics is the same. I don't know how I feel about this because it's slower, because I know what's going to happen, and I don't think it should be this long. You know what I'm saying? I don't see the purpose of the first 200 pages other than just like introducing us to the characters. And once again, maybe this could be useful for people who read the first book like a long time ago, and then when this book came out, they needed that refreshment, they needed that reminders of what this world is. Then the first couple of 100 pages did a good job at laying the foundation and reminding them what this world entailed. But then I just finished this book. I just finished the first book a couple of weeks ago, so I don't think I needed all of that information. I do want to say that the characters that are introduced this time around, we have more characters to cover, more background stories to learn from. And these people are actually very unique, and they have, I think, unique abilities that is hinted upon. So we have now we have the north part being covered in this book instead of just the south, the west, and the east like the first book. And the north book, we know of this wolf person, his name is Wolf, and he is rumored to have some connection to the Lady of the Dark Woods, or the Lady of the Woods, so this witch. So he's called like Witchling, and he does not die from the plague. He survived from the worms kind of destroying the boats that he was on. So from all of those details, I think that he has some abilities that could contribute to the war and destroying the things that are rising. And then there's this very weird dream walking, communicating through your dreams between Glorian, the queen, the new queen of the Kingdom of Innis, and also a person from the south. I don't know, I can't remember who yet. I think it's Esbar or Tuva, I'm not sure. Basically, there's this connection between the south and the west through the two people leading these two regions. So that's very interesting. I'm not even like done with the book yet, but from what I've read, I think people should read this book first before they read The Priory of the Orange Tree, just because, like I mentioned, most of the things that happen in this book are repeated if you read this book the second time around. So I'm gonna be continuing to read. I'm gonna remind myself and remember to update you when I got to the 700 page mark. Oh my god. This woman, this girl, not even a woman, she goes through a lot. What pregnant woman who just gave birth now had to fight a war and have to rule a country, and now knows that her time has come and has decided to sacrifice herself for her kingdom. I just can't. The women in this book and this series as a whole, they're magnificent. That came out of nowhere. Oh my god, I'm having goosebumps. God damn, she's powerful. Wow. Oh god, it came. This woman just gave birth. Give her a break. Finally. Oh, that's crazy. Oh my god. I'm done. I am finished. Literally, I'm finished. Give me a second while I recuperate myself and then we can talk. Take my meds first for this. Whew, okay. I'm done with A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is the second book to the Priory of the Orange Tree series, and I have to say the last 150 to 200 pages were out of this world. I did not expect to see that much action and just like go packed into those last few pages, because throughout the entire book it was very slow. It was like building up to the plot and yada yada yada, and this was brilliant. It's so interesting. It's such a weird feeling to the point that I don't know how I feel about this book, in that even though I already knew what was coming, i.e. like the ending, because this is a prequel, you know, so I already know all of the events that are gonna happen after the events in this book because I read the first book already. But somehow the ending still made me feel heartbroken and surprised and taken aback. I now understand the events in book 1 so much deeper. It's crazy how she was able to do that. I don't even know what to feel because at first I thought, should this book be read like first and then book 1, you know? But then I'm not so sure now, because I see now why she put this book as book 2. But I do want to say book 2 is so much harder to read. I don't want to say I was a bit bored, but I kind of was. And I was also like kind of underestimating this book a little bit because I didn't know what to expect. Now that I know what's gonna happen, the people and the relationships that were developed in the last like 200 pages were out of this world, and it's more complex than book 1. The like relationship was so much more tangled. They're so intertwined. They're also very complex, and they're just like, you know, overlapping on top of each other. It's because of that they're so beautiful, and also because of that I did not expect to see what was coming. The final message that I realized after reading this book is that everything happened for a reason, and no matter how bad things get, how dark, how disastrous, how just like utterly horrible things get, humans and just people will rebuild 10 times better. Now that they know what's coming, and now that they know that this could happen again, they're so much more prepared. But they're so much more prepared, and they're so devoted to being more prepared because they lost somebody that they loved in that war. There are two people that I did not expect to grow so attached to. I thought I'm not gonna grow attached to them as much as like the other two people that I was talking about. But the fact that, oh god, I cannot. It's so beautiful. I think this is like a solid 4.25 to 4.5 stars. If you want to read this book, be prepared. Or maybe I was just in a weird reading slump, that's why. But be prepared to go so slow in the beginning that you're doubting that things are gonna happen. This is like one of the slowest books that I've ever read. Like the first 500 pages, nothing happened. Like absolutely nothing happened. You're just like being introduced to the characters and like the basic information of where everybody stands, just for them over the next 300 pages to be completely different. Like they became completely different people, but for better. Now if I am to go and reread The Priory of the Orange Tree, I'm gonna realize so much, you know what I'm saying? Oh my god, but it's so painful. It's so painful. It's a different kind of pain compared to Alchemized. Alchemized is like, the entire book was painful. You know what I'm saying? The entire book was full with torture and abuse and violence. So by the time that you get to the end of the book, you're kind of prepared, you're kind of numb, you're kind of like immune to that level of pain and heartbreak. This book took me by surprise because it slipped my mind. I did not see this ending coming at all. The relationships in this book, the found family, were just top tier. They seem to be so distant from each other. They seem to be so different. Like there could never be anything between them that could link them together, but somehow there is. They're multiple to begin with. I really appreciate how she invents different ways to connect different people to each other. This is like a small spoiler, but I don't think it's gonna be like a big one that would like affect your reading experience of this book. But Glorian, and she's like the queen of this kingdom in the West, and Dumai, which is the lost princess of the East. They somehow had this connection where they dreams and they're connected through their dreams. And at first I thought it was so random because they could never be more like different. Like I mentioned, the East and the West, they opposed each other. They hated each other. And so the fact that they're connected through that way especially was so interesting. But it was not done in a very like unintentional or like obvious way. It was very subtle to the point that I didn't know, or I didn't think it's gonna play such a big role in the entire thing, but it turns out it did. Literally a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm at loss for words. And once again, I think you should definitely give this series a try. I think I underestimated Samantha Shannon. I know she's perfection. Read The Priory of the Orange Tree first, I think. And then read this book just for it to hit 10 times harder. That's my official review of A Day of Fallen Night, and I will be finishing off the series. I just need to know what else she has up her sleeves. But that's my review. And with that being said, we have come to the end of this vlog of reading the series I'm in the middle of. It took me longer than I expected, but I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad I read such incredible books in this vlog. I hope you enjoy seeing me read and seeing me give my honest reviews. I'm like a bit more chatty than usual. I'm trying to give myself more space to speak and just like more time to speak, because at first I was afraid that, you know, my vlog should be a certain time or a certain length. But now I'm like, okay, you know, F it, you know, it's my channel, people are gonna watch me. If you don't wanna watch me, then scroll. And I do this for a reason, and I do this to share what I think. And so I'm trying to be a little bit more articulate and just more detailed and well thought out in terms of my thoughts of the books that I read. So let me know how that goes with you, how you feel about that. If you would like me to be a little bit more detailed, I can. I just have lots of things to say about books. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy all of the books that I read. If you haven't read any of the books that I read in this vlog, let me know. I think I highly, once again, recommend A Day of Hollow Night. I think Love Arrange was a quick, good romance, and then Bonds of Hercules was so hilarious. So I think I read good books in this vlog, so I'm very happy about that. And so yeah, I let you go now. I'm gonna go sleep, but thank you for watching once again, and I'll see you very soon with another episode. And until then, bye bye, take care.